Hi, we're talking about de-escalation today, and this is having everything to do with the fact that your patients are going to respond to your normal warmth most of the time, but we run into situations where patients are not managing their stress as well, and we end up having to face the result of that. So we're going to learn how to work with patients to not contribute to their anxieties when possible. We're going to learn to recognize the changes in patients who fail to continue to manage well, and then we'll talk about what to do once an event is underway. So I like to remind everybody that there's an underlying mental health issues just exist, both within your patients and their family members, and frankly with staff as well. It's just a normal part of the health of our community. And most of the time people are managing okay. When, however, we add a medical issue, a worsening medical issue, perhaps on top of a chronic one, or perhaps a brand new issue, patients that were otherwise managing okay are suddenly not managing as well. So this is something that we're going to face. So some tips to responding to people that are in distress. This is a broader kind of overview, and we'll go into greater detail in a bit, but you're really going to treat the individual as an individual. And keep in mind you're going to bring your calmness, your respectfulness to the room with you every time. Must consider your own safety, however, and consider the safety of others as you proceed. Body language is one of your first interventions before you even get to a difficult situation. So we break body language down into about 5 components here. Let's look at the one about proximity. We're keeping 2 arm length distance from people except whenever we are doing interventions with them. Posture. There's a lot of, this is kind of like one of those bits of gold in this message, is this L-shaped stance, which I can illustrate for you on the next slide. Facial expressions, slower movements, these are factors for you to consider in your nonverbals. Okay, I really love the L-shaped stance. This is the position. In this case, we have the female on the right engaged in perhaps a difficult conversation with the gentleman on the left. If this person on the right needs to deliver some news to the patient that is possibly not going to be taken well, it could be something like wait times are going to be longer than expected. The person on the right can approach the other individual, instead of being face to face with shoulders square to their shoulders, they can take a slightly angled stance to the other individual. So I'm still speaking to you, the audience, and giving you my full attention, my eyes, my head. I'm going to use my other parts of my body to demonstrate that I'm listening and that I'm attentive. However, with my shoulders turned away from you, it is really next to impossible for you to take what I'm sharing with you as being threatening or aggressive. It's just something that your patients are probably not even going to recognize that you're doing, because it's on such a low level. it addresses the patient's sense of threat. It's got this added benefit that I think is really great, which is that if the interaction with the patient was about to get worse, become aggressive or physical, when I'm in this stance, I'm actually already partly turned away from the patient in case I need to make an exit. It's a fraction of a second perhaps, but it does reduce my time in getting out of the room. And further, should the patient try to strike me, or that I've got less surface area to be reached. We're going to be conscious of our facial expressions because oftentimes things in the environment, perhaps our computers or our workload, can cause frustrations that read on our face. And patients will sometimes think that it's about them when it has nothing to do with them. So it's really up to us, each individual person, and perhaps for us to help our colleagues by reminding them as we enter the patient's room to center ourselves before we go in the room so that our face does not read all of those frustrations. We're going to use active listening when we're talking with patients, especially patients under stress, but it's really a good technique for all patients. Patients that feel like they have been able to tell their story immediately, whatever was came right before coming to the hospital, they're more likely to feel understood. So instead of using comments like, you need to calm down or you're overreacting, you'll want to say things that elicit them to tell their story, to unburden themselves. Instead of, why did you do that? You can say, tell me about what was going on. You can offer questions that give them a choice. You can verify what you're hearing from the patient by repeating it back to them, like, it sounds like what you're saying is. That expression of listen more than you're talking, I think applies really well to those introductions that we're doing with our patients. Additional questions that really show respect and care for your patients are here. Then what did you do? Oh, wow. Okay, and then what? And what's worked for you in the past? Those questions show a lot of respect to your patients for managing up until the time they reached our doors. But then sometimes, despite all your best efforts, your patient is having one of these stress reactions and is becoming escalated. So we need to remember that it's not personal against us. It's really about what the patient themselves is going through. It may speak to what sort of coping skills they have at this point in their life. Adrenaline does play a factor and can help things spiral out of control. So we're going to be calm in recognition of all that the patient's going through. We're going to be respectful. We're going to call for assistance if things are getting beyond our basic control. So this is a diagram of how behaviors may typically escalate. Patient starting out on the left-hand side as nervous. On the bottom, we have one or two phrases that help you know how to respond to that type of behavior. So that nervous patient, we want to be observant. We want to be mindful ourselves. Defensive patients, that's when they're starting to refuse to follow instruction. We're going to focus on the patient's feelings, and we're going to clarify what the patient is really asking for. With continued escalation, we might fall into risky behaviors. We're going to look to disengage and reserve judgment. It doesn't have any benefit here. Say at that yellow triangle there, as we're moving from risky into tension reducing, that's typically when interventions happen. Perhaps we've called a code purple, or we've got the right person in the room that's going to help turn the corner for the patient. It is really common, normal part of the process for tears to be shed, for regrets to be voiced. The energy that was going into that building situation has been expended, and you want to follow that with therapeutic communication and reassurance for the patient. Code purple is the code that we would be calling when our patient is out of control and is a danger to themselves or to somebody else. So we call code purples at Methodist Willowbrook using 77777. It's 5 sevens. Staff trained in de-escalation are going to respond. That would include security, police officer from the emergency room perhaps, and typically other staff members like leads and charges. We're going to take a team approach to handling the response from that point forward. Those that are skilled in de-escalating situations are going to bring this type of communication to the room. Concrete questions. They help the patient focus. Establishment of rapport, using the patient's preferred name, finding some commonality upon which to build. There is limit setting, like requesting cooperation, talking about expectations for even just the next few minutes. We're going to come to an agreement on something. That rapport that we built earlier is going to come into play. We're going to use I statements so that I'm personalizing my stance with the patient. I believe, I have seen. We're going to show respect for the patient, but not to the point that it becomes kind of idle flattery. Acknowledge what the patient is saying and reassure them that they are being heard, that we are working with them to find a solution. In limit setting, it's important to set reasonable limits. We have to recognize that our patients have independent will, and while we may ask things of them since they're in our institution, they may not be agreeable or even respectful of the request in the first place. Something to keep in mind. Further, to be simple and clear, direct, here's a technique to use the positive choice first. Positive consequences can be seen as both positive or negative. We think of negative consequences, but we shouldn't forget about positive consequences. Like if you wear your telemetry box, then we'll get enough information about your particular condition sooner, and it'll lead to a quicker diagnosis. Consequences should be enforceable. So if we say it, it should be able to be made a reality. If especially must be careful when we are threatening discharge or any other negative consequence. Part of that resolution is going to be finding some agreement, even if it's small. The illustration there is showing how we can put out a fire. And really, agreement is one of those things that can cool a situation down. We want to acknowledge the difficulties that our patients have gone through, both during and after one of these escalated events. It's very kind and respectful of our patients to express that to them, even when we've not done anything wrong. In that case, that we've not caused any harm to the patient, or things have not been in our control, we can still find it in our hearts to say that we're sorry for the difficulty they've gone through. We're going to be having a goal of helping them to move on to the next step. And we're going to invite criticism. This is a very healthy way to draw a close to a conflict. We want to invite that patient to, or family member, to express the frustrations once they've regained their rationality. Sometimes they just need to vent. Of course, we want them to do that when they're calm and they have all the information. Nonetheless, just opening the conversation, I want to hear everything that's bothering you right now, is a very healing way to close this discussion. And then after the crisis, we must take a few moments to center ourselves, to allow our bodies and our minds to respond to the stressors that they just endured. So taking some breaths, practicing forgiveness, talking to somebody else, whether they were there or not. Perhaps you would reach out to spiritual care or a friend from another department to let your feelings out. And then the place that the event occurred should also consider debriefing as a group. Everybody that was on shift at that moment to gather together to go over the events, discuss options for improvement, recognize those that performed especially well, and just have some other shoulders to lean on. These are some links. They're references for the material from the presentation. I just want to encourage you to go and look up CPI, or Crisis Prevention Intervention. We offer the class here at the hospital every other month. For initials and renewals occur every month. If you work in certain places in the hospital, this class is required for you. Emergency department. If you're a lead, like a charge in your area. If you're a PCA that's going to be sitting with behavioral patients, you'll want to have this class. And anyone can take the class and get a national certification on crisis prevention intervention. Thank you. Please share your questions with wb-education.com.